Let's talk Halo Infinite's BTB. Now, I'd be lying if I said Big Team Battle wasn't the mode I had the most fun with during Infinite's third technical test, but there's one glaring flaw with it that I just can't glance over, especially now that we're getting even closer to launch day. So, I'd like to take a moment and talk about that problem today, and why I think it could be a huge crutch to one of Halo's most iconic game modes. Hi, I'm Parker Fox, and today I'm talking about why Halo Infinite's Big Team Battle needs some work. So what is the glaring problem that I'm talking about? Well, that problem would be the map size, or I guess more specifically how the map size affects time to engagement. When I was playing Infinite, I could go 3 or more minutes without seeing another player, or at the very least, an enemy. I once made it all the way across the map and back without seeing an enemy. That's a problem. That may not seem like a lot of time, but matches and shooters are around 10 minutes. I think Infinite actually increased theirs to 12 this time around, and in most shooters they go to 15 or 20 possibly in bigger game modes like this one. So 3 minutes is a huge chunk of that time to not be engaging with players, specifically the enemy. Now during the control domination style game mode, it was the exact opposite. In fact, it almost felt too clustered at times. But for the most part, it was a ton of fun. But in game modes like Capture the Flag or even Slayer, the gameplay was ridiculously slow. A majority of my matches ended because time ran out. Most of those with no score for either team on game modes like Capture the Flag. I know sometimes that can just happen with Capture the Flag. It's a very one-sided, competitive game mode, which is why it's basically absent from most modern shooters. But to have every game end like that is a bit sad, because at least on smaller maps, it ends like that because you're too busy killing each other and just aren't able to score. Not that you spend most of the game just standing there or walking around not seeing anybody. Now, one part of this issue could be the player count, because Halo Infinite's BTB had a maximum player count of 24 players. What is this, 2012? The latest Call of Duty's player count on its large-scale game mode is 28 to 48 players. Its minimum player count for large game modes is 4 more than Infinite's maximum, let alone its maximum being double Infinite's. Hell, Modern Warfare 2019 could support 64 players in Ground War, and that's a Call of Duty game. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those people that just thinks we need the best graphics or the biggest open world maps and just loves all the gimmicks. But as someone who was playing games in 2012, and long before that, I remember when games like Battlefield 4 had us quaking in our boots because of 64 player lobbies, thinking about how we'd have an entire team full of what would be the maximum lobby size for the previous entry and then some. And now Battlefield 2042 is doing the same thing this year, giving us 128 players in next gen. Which, maybe that's the problem. With Infinite managing to look as good as it does, even on a base Xbox One, that could be a factor into why the player size is a lot smaller than what we would expect from most games these days. Which isn't to say that simply increasing the player count would fix everything, but it is one of the things I noticed when analyzing why the time to engagement could be so low. In fact, even with a larger player count, the map just seems to be very large and spacious anyhow. When I heard they were focusing on making these some of the largest maps yet, and were very focused on the large scale for this game mode, I was a little worried. Even from the aerial hover, the map just looked like it had a lot of, well, space. And I can confirm the same problem while playing. Even though it's a fairly simple 3 or more like 2-lane map, even amongst the 2 major lanes, there's a lot of space and elevation going on. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it almost feels like it's meant to house more players than are actually there. Again, harping back to the last gen console issue, maybe there were plans for more players to be on the battlefield at some point in development, but last gen consoles just couldn't handle it. Because it feels like there's so much to traverse despite there not being a lot of players to actually see. Like, even though there's a pretty substantial amount of cover on the map, most of my firefights went down like this. Whoever shoots first, maybe with a BR or a pulse carbine, would be chipping away at the other's health. And often, if that player was also closer or at least more adamant on moving in for the kill, By the time they reached the other player would already be low enough that a quick melee or a couple more rounds would finish them off. Now, FPS games have always had the general rule of who shoots first wins, but Fragmentation was just so big that even if you managed to get behind cover for a bit, or were ducking and weaving, there's so much open space between you and the enemy, either of you could just be getting off free hits while the other one runs towards or away from them. It's like you're playing a constant game of chicken, or that one carnival game with the little moles or whatever, that just keep popping their heads up. You're just shooting at running Spartans from eons away while they duck for cover. I get it, it's big team battle. These are bigger maps meant for snipers and long-range engagements. But even when I was sniping or playing long range, the sightlines I could have sometimes were just kind of disgusting. And I could just sit there the whole time until my ammo ran out, because no one, even if they saw me, could ever make it to me in time before I killed them. They'd have to be in a vehicle, or also using a fairly long range weapon. And if they were using a long range weapon, then it would just be us playing Sniper Wars, crouching and weaving until the other one loses. Again, this isn't to say I'm not enjoying what 343 is doing here. I think the vaults, for example, were wonderful. Hacking a vault with your AI like it's some sort of campaign mission, and sitting there with your squad defending this mini optional objective, and then running inside and being rewarded for it with all sorts of snazzy weapons and abilities, or just charging in and taking a vault from the enemy. Like, these were some of the funnest moments I've had yet with Infinite. I love some of the things they're doing here, but none of that really matters when most of my time spent playing the game is spent not playing the game. Again, even in Capture the Flag, which you would think defending or attacking would have really high chances of engagement, you would just sit there for the most part while defending. You'd kill the one lone person who decided to take the flag all by themselves, or destroy the one warthog that doesn't know how to drive and inevitably flips as soon as they get to the flag. Then you wait again. Or you are that warthog / player, and you run across the map for about a minute or two and get killed. And then you run back and do it again. Maybe their other maps will be better, but the emphasis on how they wanted to go bigger and better with BTB has me really worried after this technical test. I'm hoping they can find some way to remedy this in the future, but for now, I might be avoiding big team battle in Halo Infinite, because 9 times out of 10, it will be, well, boring. Which sucks, because big team battle is one of my favorite modes to play in Halo. Anyways, that does it for me. Again, these were my experiences and opinions. You could have had an entirely different experience with the game, which, speaking of which, I'd love to know how your sessions went, and if BTB lived up to the hype for you in Halo Infinite, or if it fell a little short. Either ways, until next time, I'm Parker Fox, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.